How shall we start this?
Do we not start every podcast with like, hi, I'm Helen Tudor and this is the Ideal Client Attraction Podcast, or not? You can have that. Done. We're rocking and rolling. Let's go.
So we're back for episode 9.
We are.
After a very emotional episode 8. I hope you've recovered. I've recovered, and I hope the audience has recovered. This episode is titled loosely, Who You Serve at 100K is not who you serve at $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And also, more importantly than that, discussion off air, you might not be the same person when you're serving people at 100K to $1 million.
Yeah.
So go, tell us about that theory.
I think the theory here is that everything is an evolution. So you're going to evolve. And what I think I see a lot of basically in terms of ideal client work is when people are first starting out and moving towards that first 100K, they tend to want to or feel like they can only work with people who have less money and less success than them. So they're always looking for people, basically working with broke people, with broke businesses or broke people who've got problems with like either whatever the problem is that they can solve, right? So they're usually distressed clients in some way, either financially, emotionally, or in some kind of situation that they need help, but they need help urgently. There's a real problem.
Right.
And I think as you move through the evolution of you, in terms of the revenue that you're making, the confidence that you're gaining, the evidence that you're, collating in the work that you do, being successful with other people, the more you can see that evidence of success, the more your confidence grows, the more you start to attract people who are further along in their journey. And it comes to a point where you're happy to work with people who are much further ahead than you in the area even that you specialize in. It's almost like you get so confident in the thing that you sell that you can almost help anybody at any level, anywhere. And I think that is the evolution, really. It starts very much with, I just want to work with people. How I hear it is, I want to be really accessible. I want to help everybody. I don't want anyone to not be able to afford me. Yeah. But what I actually hear is, I don't feel confident working with people who are more successful than me or more financially ahead than me, particularly in like the business marketing sort of coaching spaces. And I think that really comes from a slight lack of confidence in the early days. And I always say, well, what if you could help those people for free because you were earning so much money working with people that were much further ahead than them so that you could move them forward and then you can help them. And I think the further you get on, the more you start to work with people or clients who have had success, whether it's financial or, in the thing that you teach, and are looking for, they're not in distress. They're not moving away from something, they're moving towards something. So more of like an aspirational client who wants more for themselves or wants something that's further ahead than them and sees you as that catalyst to get them there faster. And I think that is a very subtle but powerful shift, which impacts everything because it impacts the price you charge, the impact that you have, the results they get. When you're, and I'm interested to know what you've got to say because we talked a bit about percentages, but when you're on that sort of thin edge of the wedge, thin end of the wedge where there's a lot of people, but there's only so much you can do because they're in a distressed state for whatever reason. So maybe they've got financial problems, mindset problems, health problems, whatever it might be, but they're in this distress. It's almost more difficult to move the needle for them, even with the same work, than if you're at this end with somebody who's successful or has the results that these people would desire, but they want to move they want you to help them move to the next level. It's almost like the percentages are bigger, Yeah. I always say, I can help anybody make money, but imagine what I could do with a massive organization with £1 million budget. I'm so used to over the years working with people who haven't got any money to spend on marketing, so I need to do it the hard way, if you like, the organic way, the grind it out, the do the guest experts, the putting ourselves out there, getting on, that kind of person. And I move them to a point where they can invest in marketing, and then we go to that next level. But what if I could help somebody who's got a huge budget already, and the stuff that I've learned serving all of these people, what could I do at that level? And I think you said something really interesting actually yesterday off camera. We were talking about a guy who only works with clients because he's got these 7 principles or whatever. He only works with clients, and he almost only will work with client if he knows at least 3 of those will be able to be implemented soon. Yeah. And the whole 7 will be implemented over time. So I don't know, what do you think about that?
I think when you are talking and you're sort of saying about that broke people, like broker than you.
Yeah, and I've been a broke person, by the way.
Not as far along as you.
A judgment. I know what a broke person looks like.
I think there's a common sales thing. When they're going, oh, you could be an expert too. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be further along than the people you're teaching. It's something people say to get people to sign up for their coaching courses and that kind of thing. Like, you don't need to be world class. You just need to be better than the people you're coaching. And so I think that's why that sticks in some people's heads as like they need to be there. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because in some ways, like, you know, doesn't mean every heart surgeon's had heart surgery and recovered from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not everybody that's fixing people's ACLs has had an ACL injury. Like in other fields, people will respect someone because they got the knowledge to do the job. They don't expect them to have walked that walk themselves. They expect them to have that track record. Also, yes, you're totally right. It is probably better in a mindset shift to go, do you know what? Rather than helping those people that can't afford me, that aren't my ideal client avatar, let's go and find someone that's my ideal client avatar.
Yeah.
Where, because the work I do with them is going to be different from the work I do down here. So find the ideal client avatar and come to a price that they will let me use them, and then they've got them in my portfolio. And yeah, again, the thing I was mentioning was there's a guy that basically, when he's looking for people, he's got 27 things. 27 things that he can do, and he likes to look at it and go, I know we can at least implement a certain amount of those, so they're going to do the money. But he only works with companies that are at a certain scale, so that he knows that when he increases their profits by 10%, his fees pale in insignificance because he's working with companies that are doing 10 million. And that's the other thing that people have got to realise. If your value of you to a client in general terms is relational to the impact you're going to have on their business, right? So like your ideal client avatar work is valuable because it can have a massive impact.
Yeah.
If you're working with someone and you improve their income by 25% and their income's only 1,000, that's not a lot. That's 250 quid. So how much are you really worth to them? You can't be worth $1,000 a month to someone if you've done 25%. If they're making 10,000, that's a lot nicer amount of money. You're making them an extra 2.5 grand. So suddenly paying you 500 or 1,000 is worth it. They're doing 100 grand. You're making them 25 grand extra, and it's there. And most things tend to work in percentages.
Yeah, which is really interesting because it's not something I talk about a lot, but I've heard you talk about this a lot over filming these podcasts. And I think that's a really mature business head way to look at things, which I think a lot of people don't, including me. The percentage thing is really important because like the impact is so much more significant at that top end. And I guess a lot of this comes from your experience with things like paid advertising and SEO and the tweaks that, like you say, you can make with someone who's maybe getting no traffic to somebody who's getting tons of traffic. Is all relative, isn't it? And the impact that you have is based on you doing this, basically the similar kind of work.
Absolutely.
Same strategy, just different impact.
Well, the thing is, like with SEO, traffic has a different value. And the example I normally make is, if I'm helping someone sell a house, like a new build house, they're walking away with 300 grand, 500 grand. That's a nice thing. So if I attract one client from that, like that traffic is there, it's easy for them to pay me $5,000 a month because I'm making them 500,000, right? That's a great deal. I could do the same amount of work, if not more, to try and sell someone's candles. Yeah. That's a lot of candles for me to be worth 5,000. And that's the other thing, that when you're picking your clients, and you're doing your ideal client avatar, it's there. And it's also a stage of your business. Now, if this is a huge candle business and we've got a huge business and the traffic's huge, if I can get 10% of the market of 100,000 people that are searching for candles, everything's okay. Yep. 10% of the market, when there's only like 5,000 searching for their product, isn't going to work. So in terms of like sticking to data and stuff like that, those clients that you're picking, but the strategies are different. So you're doing your ideal client avatar and who you're picking and what you're saying about people being further behind. And this is what I want to ask you. What you have to do as a 5,000 SEO client contract in a highly competitive niche isn't the same SEO I'm doing for a small coffee shop. So I haven't proved that I can do that by working with the coffee shop. Yeah. The same way I haven't proved I can do what the coffee shop needs on a low budget by only working with high budget clients. So when you're doing your ideal client avatar, and what we're saying about this, the client you're working with, there is a track record of working with thousands of smaller clients. Doesn't mean you can work on that bigger budget. Working with clients with bigger budget doesn't mean that you can turn someone around on a smaller budget. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because just thinking about, say someone, which could happen, somebody knows someone who knows someone, they ring me up and say, Helen, I've heard you can do all this ideal client work and this online marketing stuff. Like, can you come and help us? We're a $50 million a year business, right? Can you come and help us?
Yes.
Yes, of course I can. But when Natalie said to me, we need to start shifting the ideal client up, so we're working with people who've already had success that are doing 6 figures, maybe 7. And I was like, why would a 7-figure business owner want to come and sit and talk to me? And it sort of tripped me out a little bit. And she said, well, if I put somebody who's an 8-figure business owner in front of you and say, can you help them define their ideal client to a deeper level and connect with them spiritually? And then show up to really talk to that person in a new way. And I was like, well, yeah, of course I would. So you got to remember that if the thing that you do is very specialized, that at every level, you're going to be able to help people. So I think, but it's also really the part where lost my words. The evolution of you is about your confidence, I think. And the confidence comes from evidence. So I would be nervous going into that deal. I'd do it. But once I'd done it once, I'd be like, oh, this is it now. This opens up a huge opportunity here for me to repeat it over and over again with the same kind of client. And I think like what you said about almost doing a deal that's really appealing to them so that you can get them into your portfolio, if you like, is a really smart move. And I think quite often people get a lot of success at one type of client, like you say, and then think I'm just going to be able to transfer it, and then can't understand why people aren't knocking the door down because they've got no track record, got no evidence. And this again is sort of, it's gold standard business advice that we forget in the online space.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I worked for Virgin Gyms for a while. Used to be a personal trainer. Hard to imagine it now. And what was really interesting, all of the average packages everybody sold stayed the same until they'd sold the next one.
Yeah.
So if you used to selling a 12-pack, you sold 12 packs, and then you sold a 24, then suddenly your average pack within 3 months become a 24-pack. And I believe it was across the whole chain.
Yeah.
So as soon as you've
like the 4-minute mile of sales.
As soon as you've broken that kind of, that's what I sell now. Yes. That's normal. As soon as I'm comfortable with like, I'm working with 36, that's what I do now. I work with people for 3 months. You don't tell people, well, I do sessions.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I work with you for 2 months. I work with you for 3 months. I work with you for
it becomes the new minimum, like basic, but it's the way you say it and the way you,
absolutely,
the
you just stretch. It's just like, look, I take clients on, I only work with people that are willing to commit to 6 months of training with me at least twice a week. Is that you? Are you serious about this? Mm-hmm. Yes. Whereas when you first start, you need money as a PT because you're living off Weetabix. It's not the glorious thing. It's kind of like, do you want to train with me once a week every Thursday and give it half your effort? As long as you pay me, I don't care. Yeah. And so I think there's like that stretch.
Yeah, there's that stretch point. There's the anticipation, the stretch point, and then you go into this, becomes the new normal.
But the trick is, as you were saying, like what you do is very specialist and you can work with anybody. But if you are in a more competitive area, that kind of like, well, have you helped this person? So once you start working with, so the ideal client work that you do, superb work, and you're talking about entrepreneurs.
Yes.
My head, I'm thinking corporations.
Yes.
I'm thinking about going in and helping Uber decide who their ideal client avatar is, or avatars for certain products and services they've got. Mm-hmm. Teams of you going in and training their teams and their marketing teams to understand that, their customer service people to understand who they are, how they can talk about it. Yearly annual training contracts worth megabucks at corporations so that everybody within that company understands that. Now, that's because I haven't got to do it. That's because I haven't got to make that stretch. So I can just see product value, and it's there. But obviously going past 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs is a perfect thing. And so sometimes that's a help. Ask someone else where they see you could be.
Yeah, the opportunity could lie and where they believe it. And that's why it's really good to have a mentor or have somebody like, so Natalie's really good for this in my team. She's my strategist. And yeah, she was the one that said to me, like, of course you can work with 8-figure, 9, 10 corporations, whatever, and her belief is obviously really powerful. And it's funny because I know I do that for other people. Yeah. But it's when you do, it's hard to do your own stuff for yourself, but the more I fell into it, the more I was like, well, yeah, of course I could. You know, of course, I should, I can, and and it's the same with my pricing, right? So I used to charge £99 an hour, which we talked about, and then that went up to £500 an hour, and that felt like a huge stretch.
Yeah.
You know, that's when I was starting to get. Again, we talked about the roller coaster. You know, that's when I got a lot of backlash on that. Like people on LinkedIn, like £500 to talk to you. You know, and a lot of ridicule through my friends and family. You know, we were like, we get to talk to you for free, and now you're charging people £500, and why would anyone invest £500 for an hour? And what was the other, nurses are eating at the food bank, and you're charging £500 an hour, and what could you possibly say in that hour? This is what I mean. Like, you say it doesn't bother you, but I remember them all. I could recite them all. You know, I'd be quizzed on all my negative comments, and but then £500 an hour just became my new normal. So then when I brought out the Ideal Client co-creation sessions, charged £1,000, and Natalie said, you should be charging £2 for that. I said, I'm going to do 1,000, and I sold absolutely tons. And then I said, you know what, you're right. I don't want to be doing loads of these sessions. I'm going to just charge £2. And then nobody bought for ages. And Stu, my husband, was like, why don't you just do it for like £1,000 an hour? Like, why aren't you just doing it for £1,000? It's like, well, actually, they take 90 minutes if I'm going to do them properly. And I know they're incredible, and I know I'm the best in the world at it, and I know I'll get paid £2,000 for them. I just need to have patience. I believe in myself, even if no one else does.
Yeah.
You know? And to which obviously he's like, okay. But it's important to me that I set that because I wanted to attract a certain type of client.
Yeah.
And then when my inbox dings, how can I book in with a session? I was like, yeah, it's £2,000. Here's my bank details. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Sent the money. When can I have my call? It's like, well, of course. So it's that you've got to stretch and then accept, stretch and then accept, I think.
I think the other thing is with stretch. Right, I'm going to use the analogy of chocolate buttons.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that.
Because it's been bothering me. Okay. so what we've been accepting like in the last few years, somehow our government's failed us all because chocolate buttons have gone from £1 for a big family bag, which is the kind of size a fatty like me gets, to the fact they're now £1.65.
Yes.
It's a national scandal. No one's talking about it. It's not on Question Time. I will go on Question Time and ask that question. But the fact is, they went to £1.25 first.
Yes.
Then they like snuck up to £1.50.
Yeah.
So that's 25p more. It's 25p more. And now they're £1.65. And I walked in and I picked them up the first time. I was like, I'm not paying that. Not paying £1.65 for my button fix. And then 2 weeks later, I was back in there, smashing them out. Because I've almost forgotten
what life is
in
like.
day-to-day life that they were £1. So I've stopped comparing the value of the buttons now to what they were. And it's like, do I want to spend £1.65 on buttons? Yes, I do. So when you've launched in a product and you're stretching and you're putting your prices up, I think sometimes people forget, especially when you're as prevalent as pushing products and it's out there, if you suddenly double the price of your product publicly in front of your audience, they need to stop thinking, I'm having to pay double for the same thing I could have paid that before, and start perceiving the product at the new value. So sometimes that's a time thing. So while you're stretching and while you're having that panic, and like you were saying that there was that gap, it's probably because you're pushing them so hard and so publicly at 1,000.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
When they're suddenly 2,000, like, oh, that's double now. That's a big jump. How much better is she going to be? Is she going to be twice as good? So there is that real life stuff. So there's a mental stretch, right? And what people need to realize is, you also need the public to kind of forget that they were the old price or justify the price increase as to their, as to where it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think getting in the habit of justifying things to the audience is
necessarily smart. I was just going to say, that's the one thing I haven't done. I haven't justified it. I just put my price up. I've put a deadline on it. This is the way it's going up, and obviously sold lots towards the end of the deadline. We love a deadline, right?
Yeah.
And then put the price up and nothing. And I knew that would happen. It didn't surprise me, but this is because I'm an evolved entrepreneur. I know I've seen this happen. I saw it happen when I went up to 500 and 1,000. So it's almost like I was totally confident. People around me, maybe not. Stu was a bit like, just put it back down and keep selling it, because it's hard to argue with, I work 5 hours a week and I make £5,000 a week. It's hard to argue with that as a nice position to be in, right? But really, if we talk about my life by design, everything is, on the big roller coaster now. On the big roller coaster, I only do 3 of these calls in a whole week.
Yeah.
So to actually make the money, I've got to do, less calls so I can give more in those sessions. And I only want to work with people who are really committed to making the change, because the ideal client work is the start, not the end. The session is the beginning of it. And that daily devotional practice of connecting with your ideal client has to happen every day from then on in for it to really truly work. So I only want people who are committed, not for the hour and a half, 2-hour session. I mean, I need people who are committed to taking it forward and making it their new normal as well. So the more the investment, and I've got no doubt, if you're watching this in the future, hi, by the way, I think it's funny when people in the future are watching me.
Yeah,
I've no doubt those sessions will be $5,000.
Yeah.
Because eventually I'll probably only do one a month because I'll be busy with everything else, So it's all, I feel like if you're evolving, then your prices and your products and your service got to evolve with you. Otherwise you're just stagnant and stale. Who wants to be stagnant and stale?
I agree. And I think, as you say, these will be more in the future, because there'll be more track record of them proving to have worked and had impact at higher levels and stuff like that. The other interesting thing is, in this conversation, like the client yourself said about broke people, trying to help them and keeping your prices down and stuff, it's so much easier to win when you've got a winning team and good players and stuff like that. If you took over as a manager of Real Madrid, or you took over, or a manager like a team like Liverpool, as they are now, if you were offered either of those two managers' jobs, right, they're far better to take than the Man U job.
Yeah.
Because Man U are going to flirt with relegation for a couple of seasons now, and you're just going to look bad because you can't.
Take that back.
I had to get that dig in there at some point.
Mid-table mediocrity.
But the thing is, you kind of like have to accept that if you are a football manager, and you take that risk to go for a team that's fighting relegation, that's a hell of a pull around. That's if you can do it, it's great. But it's far easier to walk into a team that's already at the top, that's already winning, that's got that success in there. And that's not to say that people at the bottom won't. Right, and people should help people at the bottom, but sometimes there's other ways of doing it.
Yeah, that's what I mean on scale without you taking up your time.
I like the methodology, and I don't know what you think, of having one-to-one time, very expensive in your mind, so that's relative to you, and very valuable, because then I think it positions everything else that you do, thereby. If I want to get people to the point where they can pay me the huge money to work with me one-to-one, that excite, I'll stack the products up behind it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to draw the drawbridge up, but if I want to help people that are nowhere near that, so if I want to help people with SEO that haven't got $5,000, and there's a start point where it becomes worth me getting involved, okay, beneath that, then we create a course, which I haven't done yet, which I will commit to doing. Then we create a course that helps those people that are going to have to start on their own.
Yeah.
Let me do that, because then everybody wins.
Yeah.
They're not having to pay for my time. They're still getting help, and I think.
Well, without my high ticket clients and without my group program, my thousands of paying clients in there, I couldn't take days out of my schedule to create this content that people can listen to for free. Same as I couldn't take 5 days out of my schedule to do a 5-day free challenge to do for free if I didn't have the support of the team, but also B, the financial security, if you like, the financial, the cash flow. Because if I was helping people at £99 an hour forever, then to make the money I make now, I'd be working many hours, more hours than exist. And therefore, I wouldn't have time to do any free content. I wouldn't have time to do anything but deliver for those lower ticket clients, because it'd be taking up my time and my earning power in one go.
So you were, at one stage, not able to afford you at $2,000 an hour as an ideal.
Wasn't able to afford much.
Exactly. But you worked really hard and you put the hours in. So there are exceptions. Like if someone had bought you, if you had the chance to afford it, I imagine Helen, that was doing the £99 offers, would have soared and accelerate. But in general, do you think the more people are paying for it, the more chance I've got of success?
Yeah, I do.
And what do you think the mind? What do you think?
I see that at every level with my clients and my own clients, but my clients' clients. We see it at every level.
No, because you do all this work on ideal client avatars and stuff. How is that defined in a mindset? What is it about that? Because it's not about the fact they just got cash in the bank, right? It's not just the fact. I mean, because if they just won the money and they were spending it on you, I don't think that would increase their chances of success. Mm-hmm. But if they've earned the money, or it's there, or, it's like earn in the trenches and they invest it, I imagine that does. So what is it about that paying more, or those people that are willing to pay more, that tends to predetermine they've got a higher chance of success?
Well, it predates the ability to pay.
Right.
They've done something in the past that's generated enough income to mean they can invest. So that's a green flag. You know, there's a, you know, I used to say, I think it will be out there on a video. It's called Tough Love. And we do ask people if they want to see it. When we're doing a launch, we say, if you're not able to afford this, there's a video here for you, but it's a trigger warning on the content. It's called Tough Love, right?
Yeah.
And one of the lines in there really is, if you can't afford my program, you also can't afford a holiday for your kids. If you can't afford my program, you can't afford to invest in a team for your business. If you can't afford my program, you can't afford to fix your car if your car breaks down. There's a bigger problem than not being able to afford my program. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to afford my program and a holiday and fix your car and be able to do whatever you want for the rest of your life. Like, it's not about you should be spending your money on my program. It's if you want it and you can't afford to find the money,
you've got some other stuff to fix.
There's other stuff to fix. And it's almost like I can't sleep at night knowing this. So this is why I want you to go back, do the 5-day challenge again. I want you to go and watch the masterclass again. I want you to take the checklist, whatever else we've given you for free this week, and I want you to implement it. And I want you to come back and tell me you can afford to buy my program. I don't mean you got to come back and buy it. I mean, I want you to come back and tell me in 6 weeks, 12 weeks time that you've taken my advice, you've done everything. You've downloaded, I've got a 2K in 2 weeks, like WhatsApp automation, which gives you prompts every day and gives you advice and support and all the rest of it, all free WhatsApp, completely free. I don't make any money off that. Don't even get any data off that. So I'm not even lead yet. It's just literally sign up and you get it. You know, you got your checklist, you've got your 5-day challenge, you've got all these free resources. You got no excuses. I want to see you again between 6 and 12 weeks saying you've got that money in the bank. You're not going to buy from me. You're going to spend it on something else. It's a bigger problem than not being able to buy my program.
I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That you want them to be able to afford it
more than anything.
And that's a great kind of like psychology of, you want clients to be able to afford your product and say no, because unfortunately in today's world, £2,000 can seem like a hell of a lot of money, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like,
it is a hell of a lot of money. It is a lot of money.
It would have a big impact in like most people's lives that are listening to this across the country. If you drop $2,000 into most people, there's a lot they can do with that.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, quite rightly. If you can't pull that money together to invest in something you want, and I've been there more often than
absolutely same.
More often than
use that as fuel for the fire to go and do something different. But you're right. There is that whole, if you are not making a choice as to whether you want the program or not, is whether you can afford it. There's more work to do, and I don't want that for you. Like, and that's a really nice thing to say. It's like, I don't want the first $2,000 that person makes. I want the 10th $2,000.
Absolutely.
That person makes.
I'm going to show you a way. It's like, so with that, the first 100K client, or the clients that you serve to get to 100K, might not be the ones that get you to $1 million. Mm-hmm. You need to be very careful in identifying your ideal client avatar as to who you work with, because a track record of working with different clients might not give you the boost to go and work with the other ones. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to stretch your psyche and understanding to feel like you're worth working with those. You've got to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Absolutely. And if you want to be really nice about it and you want to get to that, help clients get to the stage where they can easily afford you. Yeah. And then that calms the, am I a good person thing? Yeah. Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. It's just like, let's not be cheaper. Let's be better. Let's make the people that I want to be my clients richer, so they pay me. Yes, exactly. I want us to serve broke people. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, because I'm a broke person at heart, right? Because I'll never forget what it's like to be broke, right? Yeah. I'm always moving away from that. I understand what it's like and I get it. Yeah? I get it. And I know when people say I can't afford your program, they mean I can't afford the program. It's not they don't see the value. They mean they haven't got the money, right? So I don't want that for anybody. Not a single person anywhere in the world do I want them to feel like that, ever. And it matters to me. Yeah. So as entrepreneurs, we have got a duty of care to make sure we produce the most amazing free content so people can learn from us, people can get a result from us without paying us. And only then can we create products and services that people pay us for. You have to do both. It's like, it has to be two sides of the same coin. You can if you want, but I couldn't just say, if you want my support and advice, you just got to pay me. You know, you pay me thousands of pounds and I'll speak to you. That you pay for proximity. You pay for my time, attention in that space. And when you do, it's incredible. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Those one-to-one sessions are, I'm like, I'm not on the planet.
You know what I mean? It's like it's a really intense, powerful experience. Well, because I charge so well for that, it allows me to have the time, the energy, and the space and the grace to create so much great content that's leveraged. Content like this, I've got my book, I've got podcast, I've got YouTube, I've got free 5-day challenges, I've got free masterclasses, I've got free content on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram. You can find enough advice from me anytime, anywhere to go and make as much money as you want. You don't need to buy from me. And that everything I create is about making it so you don't need to buy from me. Open source information. I don't hold anything back. I don't keep anything a secret. But to get as close to me as you would in a one-to-one, you have to pay a significant amount of money.
I like that approach a lot. And you were saying there about you're paying for proximity.
Yeah.
And another way that I like to think of it as well in terms of pricing increase and like a scale is like you're paying for specificity.
Yeah.
You know, if you're putting out content for everybody, it's general business owners. We're generally talking about all business owners. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's out there. That's the wider thing, wide net, general business owners. Then you might run a small mastermind, you know, like with a small group, it's 20 people. They are all personal trainers. They are all coffee shop owners. They're all that. But there's 20 of them. So you've got to do the thing that would appeal to those people that are trying to get their coffee shop from 1 coffee shop to 5 coffee shops. That's the goal of that group. Talking to that group.
Nice. It's a great mastermind idea, by the way.
The top, how to get coffee shops. Put cakes in there and move near John because he'll buy all the cakes. And then the top one would be you're working with just that one coffee shop owner about his dream, his vision. So it's not diluted. Yeah. It's all like that. So there's
nothing's diluted, not the advice, not the time.
Absolutely.
Not the attention.
Yeah. So
it's very powerful.
He's not talking about Steve's problem. He's talking about just his problem.
Yeah.
So he's not sat there listening to try and figure out because he's already got the referral system sorted. So he doesn't need to do that. So
we're not pros and cons at every level of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think, as you say, proximity and specificity are what you're paying for when you're paying the bigger money. And you don't need that when you're first starting because I imagine a lot of people that if you can't afford the product or the coach that you want, and I've been through this recently because I can't afford one of the coaches that I want, I went through a checklist and I'm not doing everything that I could be to easily find that. So it's like, right. And I know as soon as I hire them, they're going to be like, are you doing this? Are you doing this? So I'm like, well, get that done first.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you're in that position, if you are one of these people that Helen's talking about that can't afford the 2,000, Helen's got free stuff out there. Can we link to the free stuff in the podcast notes?
I'm sure there's a magical way we can do that.
Good. So we can get all those links in here because we want as many of you that are listening now to be able to be one of Helen's clients so she can help you.
Yeah.
Loads of free resources, loads of stuff at other time. And then just really help yourself to get to the position where you're buying by choice.
Yeah.
And not because you can't afford it.
You're buying it and you're excited to buy. Yeah. This is what I was saying about ideal client and objections. When people come to me, they're excited and a little bit nervous. Like when we open up that session, it's the energy is heightened, you know, because they're invested, they're ready, they've been thinking about this for a while, you know, they're in a position to go now, and this is their reward, if you like, for all the hard work that took them to that point to be able to drop a couple of grand on working with me, you know, like, and it's an investment worth making because the work we do together is going to make many, many more, you know, tens of thousands of pounds. But just even setting the intention and then achieving the goal of working with me is the powerful shift that people need, you know? So
you've done that as well, have you? Because I do that. It's like when I get to that stage, I'm going to hire that person.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I want to be in that room. That's the master, or that's the coach, or
that's what this 10 grand's for. That's what this 20 grand's for.
Yeah, I want to go and do the ideal client work with Helen. Like, and people are like that excited when they get themselves to the stage. Like, let's do it. You know,
say to me all the time, "Oh, you on my vision board?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you doing to get me off your vision board? Like, what content of mine could you listen to right now that I've already created, that you've already got access to make that 2 grand in the next 2 weeks?" And then we'll get a call booked in.
Imagine if someone invented an app where basically they could go through a series of questions that would answer and tell them exactly what content they could listen to get them to that.
Imagine if there was a scorecard.
That would be incredible, wouldn't it? Now. Yeah.
That's what the voice notes were with Paul before was about. I was like, I need a scorecard.
Join scorecard from the link below. But yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? You want to help people. You want to get there.
100%.
And there's nothing wrong with being poor. There's nothing wrong with being broke. Most people have been there. You fight your way up, but it doesn't mean that you have to charge and work at their level.
No.
And actually sometimes...
The fastest way of stopping yourself being broke is by stopping working with broke people and charging broke people prices. The fastest way to stop yourself being broke is by stepping into this specific thing that you know you're good at and charging properly for that thing to people who need it. It's as simple as that.
And the richer you are, the more you can choose what you do with your money and help whoever you want to help,
Exactly.
can't you? Well, that was very powerful, I think, on that episode. There's lots of tidbits and stuff like that. We're going to have some links to some great content.
Yeah.
For those people that are, you know, might have been slightly twinged by the, I haven't got to, you know, that kind of comment. We're going to have the links down below.
Yeah.
Watch that, come back, and then Helen or her team will help you get to the stage where you are making buying decisions on whether you want or not, far beyond what you think you're capable of now.
Love it.
We'll see you in episode 10.